Hello, everyone. It's so exciting for me to be able to be on a panel National Women's Day. We were talking in the green room earlier about how wonderful it is to be able to celebrate a day about women, talking about the path to leadership. So thank you all for joining us. As Margot mentioned, I'm a partner at Costanoa Ventures. We're an early stage venture firm. So I wind up seeing a lot of different people, women in particular, on very different stages of their path to leadership. And so we're going to be talking about what that looks like at those various stages with some really incredible people. So I'm going to start off by introducing each of them and then having them say where they're speaking to us from, so you can connect their names and their voices with who they are, so they can just wave. So we're going to start off with Afua Bruce, who's the Chief Program Officer at DataKind. Afua, tell everybody where you're talking to us from.
Hi, I am so excited to join you today from my home in the Washington, D.C. area.
And next we have, hopefully most of you heard Dr. Daniela Braga's talk, the founder and CEO of DefinedCrowd. Daniela, tell us where you're talking to us from.
From the city of the Space Needle, Seattle.
And Dr. Aishwarya Agrawal, Professor of Computer Science and Operations Research at the University of Montreal and Mila, as well as a research scientist at DeepMind. Where are you talking to us from?
Hi everyone, I am talking from Montreal in Canada, which is full of snow right now.
And Michelle Rodriguez, who is the first female tenured dean at the School of Engineering at Universidad del Pacífico. Where are you speaking to us from today?
Hi, everybody. I am from Peru, but this week I am here in Florida visiting my mother.
Yes, she just got the vaccine. Woohoo! All right.
Yes.
So a quick question before we start on the panel is, by show of hands, how many of you thought you would be in your current role or position when you started your career? All right. So I just want to, for those of you that were only listening and not watching, not one of the five of us raised our hand. And I think that's a really important part to just note before we begin this discussion on the journey, that you can't really plan it. You sort of wind your way through with good decisions and thoughtfulness, and you wind up in interesting places, which is why I wanted to start today's conversation talking about curiosity. This is something that I see on a ton of different job descriptions, and everybody wants the curious worker. But what that means and how you make that manifest, I think, is really challenging for people to understand. Well, how does that show up? So I wanted to start off with Aishwarya. One thing that you mentioned was something that differentiates you from others is that you have no problem asking stupid questions and clarifying questions all the time. So how did you learn to do that and overcome your fear, especially earlier in your career, that it wouldn't make you seem like you didn't know what you were talking about?
Yeah, I think I have got a knack for doing this, and sometimes it can also be annoying. But basically, my point of view is that whenever I'm listening to a talk or a presentation, it is important for me to grasp the content, so what is being talked about. And I generally don't care what the other person might be thinking about me, or even if like someone is giving a talk in a room full of people, I don't shy away from going and asking questions, even if that question might be stupid, because I feel like I don't really know these people who are in the room, so I really don't care what they might be thinking about me. But what is important for me is to learn what the presentation is about. So yeah, I think I just have that mindset.
Which is an incredibly powerful tool, which is focus on what you're learning. And if you keep learning, it will serve you very well. So Danielle, I wanted to talk to you because obviously as CEO of a startup, you guys are hiring a lot of people, and you're in a field that combines both data and AI. So massively important to be curious because nobody knows the answers even a year from now. So what do you look for that shows people are exhibiting the right kind of curiosity in a field that seems to be evolving so quickly?
So we do, especially in our field, because being so new, and my own career path shows exactly that. Nobody really learns in school to perform this job. So you look for a good foundation of a subject where you should excel at, and you need to look at many personality and resilience demonstrations. Being open and curious and thinking out of the box. So being creative. So you look for creativity and you look for resilience, in fact. And the creativity part is the ability to actually come up with solutions, even if it's not necessarily professionally, to problems that are not expected. So yeah, these are some of the things we look at.
So Daniela, if somebody is trying to prepare for a conversation, an interview, and they might not be, sometimes the thing that's challenging is the interviewer isn't necessarily skilled at assessing that skill. So if someone was trying to, in an answer, display that as a trait, even though it hasn't been asked of them, how do they move that into the conversation so that it is evident, either resilience or that creativity?
We actually usually ask, I do, when I'm interviewing my people, I do ask things like that. Sometimes it just goes along the story of life of how do you move from job to job and the reasons around that, and what are the toughest moments you experienced in, and what did you learn from them. So these are things that shows, again, like AI learning, that show that the person is actually the right candidate. Because there's really it's such an interdisciplinary field that you will not be prepared on one part of school, or even a job will not prepare you for the task in hand. For example, in our case right now, while we are whilst we hire engineers, speech scientists, NLP scientists, mathematicians, linguists, and computational linguists as well. And of course, then the traditional areas to operate a company like marketing and finance and HR. But some of the most difficult positions to hire right now for is sales and customer success. And why sales? Because no one is used to sell into an industry like this right now. So how do you even display traits that you can actually perform? Or in the customer success, you actually need to have a much more technical preparation to understand the client, but you also have to have emotional intelligence to read the client. So these are all, the world of today is really difficult, to be honest.
And Daniela, you bring up such an important point that I want to bring to you, Afua, because one of the things you talked about in our discussion before the panel was how you've learned that both technical and non-technical skills have been absolutely essential for success. So talk us through some of those non-technical skills that you have found to be very powerful in your career journey.
Absolutely.
Well, exactly. Well, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Absolutely. I think that to be really successful in this space, especially in data science, it does take a combination of both technical and non-technical skills. I think, as you just heard, if you have the ability to sell, that's really important. But I think regardless of where you are as a data scientist, it's really important to understand who your customer is. And so if you're in a more customer-facing role, being able to connect with that customer and really listen to their needs through sort of the user design framework But even if you are on a team of other data scientists, your customer may be your manager or decision makers within your company. And you need to figure out how to take the insights that you're finding and package them well and communicate them in a way that they resonate and people can follow what you did and the insights you have. I think it's really also important, of course, to be able to work on teams well, and to be able to really communicate well to a variety of different audiences.
Well, Afua, it's funny you mentioned that. So I teach marketing to engineering graduate students. And one of the things I talk about is even if you're not in the field of marketing, you'll be marketing your ideas throughout your career. So what you brought up about practicing communication and getting really good at it is an essential path, is an essential skill to learn and practice throughout your career. Michelle, one of the things that you brought up that has been challenging is there are these soft skills and we're talking about them as if, and then it all adds up to it makes sense in an organization. But you mentioned that organizational politics has been something that has been surprising, frustrating, and hard. And this is where that EQ that Daniela was talking about comes into play. So how have you experienced that? And then what are the things that you recommend people think about so that they're prepared for that reality that exists in every single company and institution?
Well, I'm so connected to your ideas when you're talking about that we are gonna sell us all the time. I am an engineering and I'm not a model, but I have to take pictures to get in the brochure. I have to talk in conference. And when I was young, I always think that the technical expertise was enough. I think that if you were good enough, everybody can see it. But when you live in a society that looks women different, you have to sell all the time your ideas. So political is very, very important to connect with other, to convince other about your ideas, and try to tell them to see the things that you are seeing right now. So it's the same as Daniela said. Now it's like we have more complex problems. Companies, institutions are always trying to deal with this with the complexity and with this diversity in the clients, in the organization. So communication, pursuit is very, very important if you want to get attention, but not only of the things that you're doing, but also your ideas, and try to influence other in the things that you are doing. So yes, always people is talking about soft skills. For me, politics in organization is so hard because you have to show, and maybe sometimes women are so shy to show. And if you're living in this world of corporate culture, organizational culture, you have to be more fear not to be fear to show what you're doing, and also your ideas. So I think it's a matter of doing it all the time. If you are kids selling cookies, it's gonna help you show the ideas about why the cookie is good, why your recipe is the best. I think we have to start from then, from the beginning. So communication and also persuasion, it's very important if you wanna sell your ideas in an organizational environment.
And I think one thing that Michelle is talking about is for all of us, but I think particularly for women, politics feels uncomfortable, or feeling like you're acting in a political way feels uncomfortable. So what I'll say is reframe it to be about being clear about your ideas and trying to help everyone else understand the value of your ideas. And if you think about it from that perspective, it'll feel a little less weird or awkward or socially like, oh my God, I'm playing the political game. I hate politics. It's really all about
Yes.
clarity and everybody benefiting from that. So think of, if you frame it from that perspective, then it'll feel a little less yucky. But Aishwarya, one thing that you mentioned that I think is really interesting is how your PhD advisors were very formative in helping you develop a set of soft skills that you continue to find very valuable. What skills did they arm you with, and how did they teach them to you?
Yeah, I think so. I can sort of divide these skills into two categories. So some of these skills are relevant to the kind of work we do. So I was learning how to do research in my PhD, And one important aspect of being able to do research is also to communicate that research to your audience. So one thing that my PhD advisors really stressed on is being able to do good presentations. So whenever you're giving a presentation, they would sort of stress a lot on whether you are able to communicate that idea. So how to like structure your presentation, what kind of things to focus on, how to make your slides more have more examples and give demonstrations of the work you are doing, and not just talk about all in math. And the other thing is not just like when you're giving presentations, not just when you're giving a talk, but also when you're writing a paper or when you're writing a research document, how to like design the flow of the idea that you want to communicate. So these are kind of skills that are very pertinent to the work we were doing. But in general, just based on the group discussions that we used to have in the lab, I learned other kinds of skills. For example, how to manage your time, how to plan your different activities on your calendar, and how to keep blocks of time even for simple activities, because each activity takes a lot of time, so you need to plan it accordingly. And other skills like how to reason about things or how to think about things. So whenever you're planning to do a task, or there is something that you need to plan for, then how to go about writing down small steps that are involved in achieving that goal, and how to plan each and everything properly. So yeah, I think these are the kind of skills that I learned either because they were explicitly instructed, or because just based on the group discussions or the environment around me, I saw people having those skills, that I like those kind of people more, and I sort of started adapting those skills in myself as well.
So you had exceptional teachers, but I just want to point out something that might be invisible to people, which is Aishwarya's attitude about how she chose which skills to acquire, which was, there were some that were asked of her directly, like, hey, you need to be good at organizing and structuring your thinking. But she looked at the people around her who she thought were really successful or that she wanted to model. And she said, what are they doing? And what can I learn from them? That's a wonderful way to constantly learn as you're moving through the world, is like, okay, do I admire this person? What are they doing that I should learn from? So speaking of that, Afua, you work in the public sector, government, nonprofit institutions. So a lot of people look at that and say like, oh, there's a lot of inefficiency there. How do you choose to make that your path? And then in a place where you might not always have great examples, who do you learn from? And how do you make the choice to continue to contribute to the public sector in your career?
Great question, and one I love talking about. I'm certainly someone who, when I was starting my career, I never considered going down the public service route, working in the public sector. In fact, when I went to grad school, I remember having conversations with some of my classmates saying, I'll consider any position, but certainly nothing in government, and certainly nothing in nonprofit. And that's exclusively where I've worked since graduating from grad school. And so with that said, I think first of all, there are a lot of examples for me to learn from in the public sector itself. I've found in general that people working in the public sector really know their issue area extremely well. And so being able to partner with people who are truly subject matter experts in a variety of public sector issues, whether it's national security or cybersecurity or law enforcement or feeding hungry children, has been really good, because then I can figure out where my technical skills really can complement and advance the cause in particular issues. I think then it's also important for me to recognize, and something I've certainly done, is that in order to use someone as an example, you don't need a really in-depth one-to-one on a weekly basis mentoring relationship with someone. You can identify traits that matter and that you want to have in your life from just a few encounters, or by following people on social media, or by listening to talks they give. And so that's been really helpful for me as well, to figure out how can I continue to make a difference in providing benefits and serving the public well.
Great lessons on who to learn from. I'm curious, Daniela, there aren't many people in your position, a woman CEO in a highly technical company. I'm curious if there were people that were particular advocates for you on that path that made you comfortable, like seizing that ring and saying, yes, I'm comfortable in this role, and how that has shaped and informed how you either mentor or are an example to others.
I thought you were going to ask me the opposite, but in the positive aspect, which is much better. I did have a number of people over in the course of my career that gave me the confidence to keep going, to trust my skills. I think one that comes to mind really right now is one of my PhD supervisors. I had actually a triad of them, and one was the engineer, and actually 3 countries involved. And this Brazilian engineer, Professor Gil Rezende Jr., he was always the one, despite in a world where, well, I still had, when in my fundraising of last year, I was still getting people, more old school partners saying, I'm sorry, but you're not really an engineer, right? You're not a traditional engineer. So how does your engineering team respect you? So you go through all of these things through your career. And so this professor was telling me, look, it doesn't matter in the end of the day. In 10 years from now, nobody cares what did you do on your PhD. It's about you completed the milestone. You went through the discipline and the hardship of it. You had peer review. And in every milestone of your life, going to Microsoft, moving from Portugal to China, proving that we could deliver, and I particularly could deliver, but then it became more than me. So first you're at your own, so your PhD path shows your progress as an individual. Then you're in a big corporation, and you're responsible for a milestone of a team, and then you're responsible for the results of a company at DefinedCrowd. You're not alone, but you are the actual captain of the ship. So you keep having people over around you that keep motivating you, and frankly, a lot of the motivation is self-inflicted. You have to keep yourself self-motivated. And for me, what really works right now in the last 11 years is my daughter, because she can't go on without me yet. And so if that is not enough motivation, plus the 300 and plus families that are depending on me at DefinedCrowd, and the list keeps going. So yeah, you have a number of people around you that always cheer for you. That's very important.
So, Michelle, I want to bring this to you. And as I mentioned at the beginning, you're the only female tenured professor at your institution. And obviously it's in the field of engineering. So what are some of the things that you're in Lima, Peru. It's a much more paternalistic culture. What are some of the things that you found that work to help shift perceptions and work in a more, we'll call it traditional paternalistic cultural place and succeed?
Well, I think like people have like different glasses. So sometimes people have rainbow glasses, other is blue, other are red. So I'm trying to figure out when I'm talking to somebody, what color of glasses does these people have? At the beginning, it was really hard because I really can't understand that. It's like for me, I was created in a family where we are 4 women, or my sisters. So it's like for me it was like very natural to to be uh, to be here or to be part of it. But when you get out and you get all these things around and you feel like frustrated about it, it's like nobody can see it or nobody can hear. But at the end, you finally understand that not all the people see the same. Or even though if you are sitting with somebody, people look the same thing different and try to explain it in a different context. So I think the first thing is try to understand what color of glasses that the people talking with you are. So if it's our blue or rainbow, it could be different, and you have to approach it in a different way. Sometimes I feel really frustrated because it's like at the university, we were so many women in the engineering school. This have been changing for this last 25 years, and I'm very, very proud of it. Also, when I get into the university, when I first start my career in the academia, as I told you, I was the first woman that got tenure in the engineering school at the university. So for me, it was like natural. But when I turn back and I see, I said, what happens? Why are not more women here sitting? Or when you're in a conference right now, why am I the only woman in the picture? Before that, I really never has these questions, but you start looking at and you see, well, something is going wrong here. So I think to have a voice, to think different, to see different makes really a mission in life. As Daniela said, I have two daughters, and I think the world's gonna be more just for them if we can still working on that, encourage girls to get into science, into maths, and not to be afraid of it. So it's like we have to evangelize more and more and more.
So I just want to put a real important punctuation point on something Michelle said, and that was around having going back to the soft skills, the EQ to read the room and the vantage point from which the other is coming. The earlier you learn in your career to not just argue from your particular point of view, but to understand and acknowledge the other person's, it makes them a better listener to what you have to say. So it's just a really, really great skill to hone as early as possible. And just real quickly, I wanted to ask Aishwarya, because one thing you seem to be fearless around is being a nudger and a challenger in an organization. But is there a particular thing that you have found works well for you to have that role and have it be received well?
I'm not sure if I understood the question correctly. So can you rephrase and ask again? Sorry.
Yeah, just if you believe that it's possible for everyone to change their minds over time. And so what do you do that helps you sense when that opportunity might be there, that their point of view might have shifted? Or what do you do to help shift that point of view over time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like when you talk about the same subject matter at two different times, and when people speak their point of view, it is clear. You can see that their point of view has changed. So I think that way it is pretty evident. I don't necessarily try and convince other people to change their point of view, but what I do feel is that one should not shy away from having sort of like a conflicting point of view with someone else. So let's say you're talking to someone and that person is a really big deal for you, and you perhaps look up to that person and they have a different point of view compared to you. So I don't think you should sort of feel like, okay, their point of view is clearly better than yours because that person is more successful, or like you look up to that person because they might learn something from you as well. You might have something unique. So don't shy away from putting that forth, and they might learn. And at some point, who knows, their point of view might change and it might align well with what you thought today. So yeah, just like be open about what you think.
So we just have a minute left, so I'm going to do a really quick speed round question for each of our panelists. Afua, your favorite phrase or word?
Oh man, this is a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. Lately, it's amazing. DataKind, we just had an event this weekend with our DataKind community, and it's just amazing the amount of effort that people can still put forth to do good in the world despite the current world circumstances.
All right. And Daniela, favorite COVID survival strategy?
Balance. Read yourself. Read yourself better, and you're never done learning. That's the reality about yourself and about the world.
Michelle, you have 10 seconds. Favorite word or phrase?
Free to be who you want to be.
And Aishwarya, favorite word or phrase? 5 seconds.
Relief.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. You've been a great panel.